You're doing everything right. Or at least it seems like you are. You visualize, you script, you say the affirmations. You try to feel the feelings of already having it. You've been patient, intentional, even surrendered, at least in theory. But still, it's not here. The thing you want, the shift you seek, the life that feels just out of reach. And so you start to wonder, what's missing? Why does it feel like something invisible is blocking the signal? Let me tell you the truth that most never see, because it's not loud, it's not dramatic, it doesn't come with lightning bolts or fireworks. It's a whisper, a felt sense, a subtle internal tilt. Most people never manifest because they miss this shift, this almost imperceptible change in posture, not of the body, but of the being. And until it clicks into place, everything still feels like chasing. It's not that you're wrong for trying, it's just that trying carries a hidden frequency, one of incompleteness, one of not yet. And frequency doesn't lie. You don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. And if who you are is still subtly leaning forward, subtly waiting, checking, measuring how close it's getting, then the frequency you're emitting is not coherence. It's conditional hope, it's interference. There's a moment when something shifts, quietly, internally. It feels like the body finally exhales, like the waiting ends, not because the thing arrived, but because the part of you that was watching for it stops watching. It dissolves. And in that moment, something clicks, something aligns. You stop searching for the reflection and become the source. You stop asking for proof and start being the proof. The truth is, most people try to manifest from a mental place, from ideas, effort, and even faith. But vibration doesn't respond to belief alone, it responds to embodiment. And embodiment is subtle. It's the way you breathe when you stop holding your breath for the outcome. It's the way your nervous system softens when you no longer need evidence to feel safe. It's not what you say you trust, it's whether your body is living as if it's already true. Imagine you're tuning a radio. You twist the dial slowly, almost there, and then you hear the station snap into clarity. Not because you did more, but because you adjusted into harmony. That's the shift, the one most people miss, because they're busy doing when the answer is being. They're still trying to manage the timeline, control the variables, stay aligned enough to deserve it. But the frequency of control is lack, and lack cannot magnetize abundance. Pressure cannot receive presence. When you truly shift, it feels like nothing happened, and yet everything did. You stand up, move about your day, smile at a stranger, sip your coffee, and something inside you is different. You're not waiting anymore. You're not convincing yourself. You're simply resonating with the timeline where it's already done. And that resonance, that's the real signal. That's the vibration the quantum responds to. Not effort, essence, not pressure, presence, not force, but frequency. And so the question is not, how do I get there? The question is, what am I still gripping? Where is the subtle contraction in me that still believes it's not safe to let go? Where am I still checking the mirror before I believe in the reflection? Because that subtle tension, that's the misalignment, that's the static. And here's the paradox. You don't release it by trying to release it. You release it by softening into the now, by letting this moment be enough, by letting the breath arrive all the way. You release it not by changing what's outside, but by shifting who you are inside the waiting. And in that shift, so soft, so simple, so powerful, the whole field reorganizes. Because now, you're not asking for it. You're emanating it. You've become the signal, and the quantum has no choice but to respond. I remember the first time I felt it, not as a concept, but as a knowing in my bones. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't journaling. I was just walking, the kind of aimless, slow walk you take when there's nothing to prove. And suddenly something released. A grip I didn't even know I was holding. The part of me that was measuring how far I'd come just stopped. And in its place, there was this strange fullness. Not because I had manifested anything new, but because I had finally met myself here, fully. That's the subtle shift, the one most people never notice, because they're too busy looking for signs that it worked. But when the shift is real, you stop needing signs. You become the sign, you become the walking embodiment of the reality you used to long for, and the energy that used to reach now radiates. Most of us were taught to associate effort with progress, to equate striving with deserving. So it's not your fault if the silence feels strange, if the stillness feels like nothing's happening. But in the quantum field, silence is not absence, it's coherence. Stillness is not delay, it's alignment. The field doesn't need noise to respond, it needs resonance. And resonance begins when you stop trying to prove your worth and start remembering your nature. Think of it like a tuning fork. When one fork is struck, the other begins to vibrate. Not because it was hit, but because it shares the same frequency. That's how reality works. You don't chase the outcome. You become the tone that draws it to you. And that tone, that frequency, is set not by your thoughts, but by your embodiment. Your regulation, your softness, your presence, your ability to stay open in the unknown. This is why urgency is so deceptive. It feels like forward motion, but it's actually a contraction, a tightening of your frequency. It's like trying to listen to a song while clenching your jaw. The notes might still be playing, but you can't receive them fully, because your system is not available to the beauty. It's in defense, not receptivity. And in manifestation, receptivity is everything. There's a version of you, one not far, not someday, but already here, who doesn't need the proof anymore, who doesn't wake up asking, when will it happen, but simply lives as though it already is, who knows that the mirror reflects what the soul is being, not what the mind is demanding. That version of you isn't more disciplined, they're more surrendered, they're not working harder, they're receiving deeper. They've allowed the subtle shift to take root, not just intellectually, but somatically, and their life begins to mirror that safety. You see, the quantum doesn't respond to how much you want something. It responds to the frequency you hold while wanting it. If the wanting comes with tightness, it delays. If the wanting comes with peace, it accelerates. Not because the universe is rewarding your calm, but because peace is coherence, and coherence is magnetic. So ask yourself, can I want this and still feel whole now? Can I desire without reaching? Can I long for something and still let myself enjoy this breath, this body, this moment, without conditions? Because when you can, the frequency collapses the timeline, the signal sharpens, and the thing that once felt distant starts moving toward you, not because you chased it, but because you finally became clear enough for it to find you. That's the shift, subtle, somatic, real. And once it clicks, you never forget how it feels. It's easy to think you've surrendered, to say the words, to let go for a moment, only to check again an hour later. Did it move? Is it closer? Did the universe hear me? And that checking, that constant peeking through the veil to see if anything shifted, it scrambles the frequency, because underneath it is still the belief, it's not here yet. I need to monitor it. But manifestation doesn't come through monitoring. It comes through merging. Imagine sitting at the edge of a still lake. When you toss a rock, you wait for the ripple. You don't keep tossing more rocks every few seconds, hoping for a faster result. You let the energy unfold. You trust the physics. That's what quantum creation is. It's not about more input. It's about cleaner signal. And cleaner signal comes from stillness, not scrambling. I know the ache of wanting. I know how heavy it can feel to hold a dream so long that it starts to fray around the edges. I know the confusion when you've done the work, but the result still hasn't shown up. That's why this shift matters, because it's not about doing more. It's about becoming less divided inside, less entangled with the outcome, less split between who you say you are and who your energy reveals you to be. Coherence is wholeness, and wholeness is magnetic. So many try to manifest while fragmented. They visualize one thing but feel another. They speak abundance but carry tension in their chest. They affirm love while bracing for abandonment, and the universe responds not to the words, but to the underlying tone. That's why the subtle shift is not something you perform, it's something you allow. It's the shift from hoping to knowing, from efforting to emanating, from trying to prove to simply being true. And sometimes this shift comes like a soft thunder, a sudden inner quiet, a moment where you stop needing anything to be different, and suddenly, everything feels different. Not because it changed, but because you stopped resisting what is. And in that release, the resistance dissolves, and the energy flows again. Have you ever noticed how miracles tend to arrive, not when you're watching the clock, but when you forget to? Not when you're obsessing over the how, but when you drop into the now. That's not coincidence. That's coherence. That's the field responding to your alignment, not your anxiety. This is what most miss. They think the shift will feel like fireworks, but it feels more like a deep exhale, like the moment the wave gives up trying to be the ocean and just lets itself be water. And suddenly, it realizes it always was. That's who you are, not separate from your desires, not outside the life you're creating, but already woven into the quantum fabric of it, already vibrating in the direction of the timeline that's calling you. if only you'll stop gripping long enough to hear it. So ask yourself, gently, lovingly, where am I still gripping? What do I still believe I have to earn, prove, manage, monitor, or force? And then ask, what would it feel like to release that, even for a breath, even for a moment? Because that moment, that micro shift is where the magic lives, not in the grand gesture, in the subtle shift, the quiet trust, the clean frequency. And from there, things begin to move, not because you pushed them, but because your signal became so clear, they couldn't not respond. You might not notice the moment it happens. You won't feel a dramatic jolt or hear a cosmic drum roll, but suddenly your body walks differently. Your gaze softens. Your choices feel lighter. You're no longer arranging your life to manage lack. You're living from the knowing that there is no lack to manage. It's subtle, like walking through a doorway you didn't know was there. One moment you're trying to embody the version of you who already has it. The next you realize you are it, not through force, through frequency, not through saying it louder, through letting it be quieter inside. This is the miracle of coherence. It's the moment your nervous system stops bracing for disappointment and starts humming with permission. The moment your breath deepens, not because the thing arrived, but because you finally did. You arrived into your body, into now, into resonance. And that is when the quantum can deliver, because now you're not fragmented, you're not leaking signal, you're broadcasting clarity, you're embodying the reality you once tried to attract. And that embodiment is the bridge. No longer are you looping in the question, where is it? Instead, you're living the answer. You're cooking dinner with presence, laughing without waiting, making decisions not from fear of missing out, but from fullness. You've stopped outsourcing your safety to signs. You've stopped bargaining with the divine. This is what most people miss. They think manifestation is about commanding the universe, but the universe doesn't follow commands. It follows coherence. And coherence can't be faked. It's not a mood, it's a state. It's how aligned your body, mind, heart, and field are with the frequency of already having. You can say the right words and still emit fear. You can visualize the dream and still vibrate in delay. But when you shift and truly shift, it's not about performance, it's about peace. It's not about manipulating the mirror, it's about changing the signal, and the signal changes when the resistance drops. When the timeline stops feeling urgent. When you no longer use desire as evidence of what you lack, but as proof of what's already alive in you. The desire is not distance, it's direction. It's the part of your future self whispering through time, I'm already here. Can you meet me in frequency, not just fantasy? Because here's the truth, the subtle shift is not a doing, it's a returning. Returning to the truth beneath the noise. Returning to the version of you who doesn't need to earn, who doesn't negotiate their worth, who doesn't wait for reality to validate their vibration. It's like the flower. It doesn't bloom by force. It opens when the conditions within allow. And those conditions are not about temperature or time. They're about safety. Safety in the root. Safety in the soil. Just like you. You manifest not when you get it right, but when you feel safe enough to be open. Open enough to stop pushing. Still enough to receive. So where can you root deeper? Where can you let go of the timeline and trust the template already coded inside you? Where can you stop efforting and start emanating? Because once that shift happens, that subtle, sacred shift, you don't need to watch the clock. You don't need to beg the universe. You just walk, you breathe, you live, and reality reorganizes around your resonance. That's the shift most people never see. Not because it's hard, but because it's subtle. But once you feel it, once you live it, everything changes. Not outside, inside. And then, the outside can't help but follow. The part of you that's still waiting is the part of you that hasn't felt safe to arrive. Not in the manifestation, in yourself. And that's the real work. Not chasing the thing, not forcing the outcome, but creating enough inner safety for your body to believe the dream is already true. Because when your nervous system is regulated, when your breath flows without bracing, when your being is no longer negotiating for permission to rest, that's when your frequency stabilizes. That's when the quantum field takes you seriously. Not because you've done more, but because you've finally become available. It's subtle. You stop checking your phone for the message. You stop reading into every delay as a sign it's not coming. You stop watching the clock and start watching your own aliveness. You start tending to your state, not your schedule. You become more interested in how open you feel than how much closer the thing seems. And in that, you create the conditions for reality to respond. We've been taught that the universe rewards the persistent, the disciplined, the tirelessly focused. But in the quantum, it's not about pressure, it's about purity. Not perfection, but coherence. Is your frequency clean? Is your signal consistent? Are your thoughts, feelings, and embodiment speaking the same language? Because when they are, reality can't help but match you. But if you say one thing and embody another, the field feels the static. If you affirm love while bracing for betrayal, the quantum receives the brace. If you visualize wealth while vibrating in fear, the field doesn't respond to your image. It responds to your essence. This is why most never manifest what they want. They try to overlay high-vibration thoughts on top of low-vibration nervous systems. But your body is the broadcast tower. If it's still holding old frequencies of fear, of urgency, of self-doubt, no affirmation will override that. The shift has to happen below the surface, in the breath, in the spine, in the energy you carry when no one's watching. That's what embodiment means. Not acting as if, but becoming it. Not pretending, living, not hoping, knowing. Because your body now recognizes the frequency as familiar, not foreign. So how do you do that? You start by noticing. Where are you still outsourcing your sense of enoughness to the arrival of a result? Where are you still living in reaction instead of resonance? Where does your nervous system still flinch, still wait, still bargain? And then, not by force, but by gentleness, you begin to soften. You let yourself feel safe without the thing. You let the desire be sacred but not heavy. You begin to let joy in, not because the dream came true, but because you're becoming the version of you who can hold it. That's the subtle shift, the one most miss, because it doesn't come with fireworks, it comes with peace. Not a performance of peace, real cellular peace. The kind you feel when you stop needing the dream to prove something about you. The kind that arises when you realize your energy is already enough. Your signal is already working. Your presence is already magnetic. And from that place, you stop chasing miracles, you start embodying them, you stop scripting the perfect outcome, you start scripting your frequency. And everything else, people, opportunities, timelines, starts rearranging to meet you. Not because you controlled it, because you cohered to it. Not from effort, from essence, not by pushing harder, but by becoming so true. The universe has no choice but to reflect you. Have you ever noticed how easily things flow when you're not thinking about them? When you're laughing with a friend, lost in a sunset, dancing without a mirror, and suddenly, life feels effortless. That's not luck, that's alignment. That's the natural state your soul was designed to dwell in. A state without tension, without control, without the constant hum of, what if it doesn't happen? Most people try to manifest from the hum, from the static, from the part of them that's still trying to fix something broken. But nothing is broken. Not in you, not in the timeline. What's misaligned is not your desire. It's the way you're holding it, gripping it, measuring it, guarding it with mental effort instead of letting it bloom through energetic ease. This is why the subtle shift is so powerful, because it doesn't change what you want. It changes the field you're creating it from. It shifts you from contraction to expansion, from pressure to peace, from conditional safety to unconditional coherence. And when that shift happens, you'll find yourself surprised by how natural it feels. Like waking up from a dream where you were running and realizing you're already home. Nothing needs to be chased. Nothing needs to be won. It's already yours. And not in a spiritual bypass kind of way, in a deeply embodied way. Because now your body believes it. That's the moment everything starts to move. When you're not pushing for it to happen, but you're living as though it already has. You're making choices from the future you, not to try to reach her, but because you've become her. You no longer need proof, because you've become the pattern. And patterns don't wait, they radiate. They draw life toward them without needing to pull. This is how timelines collapse. Not through urgency, but through presence. Through you becoming so vibrationally aligned with the version of you who already has it, that space and time start bending. The impossible starts arriving, not because you forced the miracle, but because you became the place where it could land. Think about it. When have you felt most magnetic? Was it when you were obsessing over the outcome? Or was it when you were relaxed, at peace, lit from within by something deeper than circumstance? That glow, that grounded power, that's coherence. That's the frequency that draws everything to you without trying. And yet so many miss it, because they're still trying to do it right. They're still measuring their manifestations by how fast things arrive. But the real measurement is this. How do you feel in the meantime? How embodied are you in the waiting? How deeply do you trust without evidence? Because that's the signal. That's what the universe hears. Not your timeline, your tone, not your words, your being, not your effort. Your essence. So pause, breathe, feel into your body. Is there peace, or is there pressure? Is there softness, or are you still subtly tensing in hope? That's where the shift begins. Not outside, inside. And the moment you soften, the moment you become the version of you who no longer needs it to happen to feel whole, the whole universe rearranges to mirror that wholeness. This is the quiet magic most never notice, the inner unfolding that doesn't scream, but sings. And when you align with that song, manifestation becomes inevitable, not because you demanded it, but because you remembered how to receive it. There's a kind of trust that doesn't need a signpost, a kind of knowing that lives beneath thought. It hums in the heart, steady and clear, even when nothing has changed on the outside. That kind of trust is not built through results. It's built through resonance, through showing up in your life as if you're already held, already chosen, already aligned. And that's the trust most people skip, because it feels like too little, because it doesn't come with guarantees. But that's the paradox of the quantum. The more you need a guarantee, the more static you introduce into your field. The more you grip, the more the signal fractures. But when you let go, not because you gave up, but because you finally remembered who you are, the frequency sharpens, and reality, almost shyly, begins to echo that remembrance. You start to see evidence, not because you're watching for it like a hawk, but because you're so deep in your own coherence that reflection becomes effortless. The text arrives when you're no longer refreshing the screen. The opportunity appears after you've stopped obsessing over the how. You run into the right person, have the right conversation, feel the right pull, not by orchestrating it all, but by being in flow. And that flow, it's not a technique, it's a state, a frequency. A trust that no longer asks, what if it doesn't happen? Because that question has become irrelevant. You're no longer living from the timeline where it doesn't. You've stepped into the one where it already has. That's the subtle shift, from worry to embodiment, from anticipation to arrival, from tension to tone. You stop performing worthiness. You start embodying truth. You stop begging for signs. You start becoming one. You stop pushing to be ready. You remember you already are. It's like standing in a field after a long rain. Nothing grand happens in that moment, but you feel the ground soften. You feel the scent of renewal rise through the air. That's what it's like when your energy shifts. The ground becomes fertile, the field becomes responsive. And you don't need to yell at the seed to grow, you just tend to the soil. You water with presence. You nourish with trust. You let the sun do its quiet work. That's how quantum creation unfolds. Not by controlling the bloom, but by becoming the space where blooming is inevitable. So notice, are you still waiting for permission? Or are you living from the yes that already exists within you? Are you still negotiating with life? Or are you resonating with the version of you who already lives the miracle because she's here, not out there, not after 10 more steps? She's in your spine, in your breath, in the quiet choice to believe before the proof, to feel before the form, to soften before the arrival. That softness is not weakness, it's the field opening, it's the frequency maturing, it's the you beyond doubt, the one who no longer needs to manifest, because she is the manifestation, she is the frequency, she is the field, and when you live from her, even for a few breaths at a time, the entire quantum fabric begins to bend in your direction, not with resistance, with resonance, not with fear, with frequency, not from the outside in, but from the inside, fully out. And now the silence feels different. It's no longer a space to fill, to fix, to analyze. It becomes a sanctuary, a mirror that reflects back the fullness you've finally remembered within yourself. The same silence that once felt empty now hums with presence, with potential, with peace. Because the real shift, the one so many miss, was never about doing more, waiting harder, or forcing belief. It was always about this, coming home to the version of you that doesn't wait for evidence to feel whole, that doesn't need the desire to arrive before she opens her heart, that doesn't outsource her safety to circumstances because she's finally become her own anchor. You see, manifestation was never about getting what you want. It was about becoming who you truly are. And who you truly are is not a beggar of miracles. You are their birthplace. You are the fertile ground. You are the coherence that invites the quantum to shape itself around you. That's why the shift is so subtle, Because it's not about adding anything, it's about removing what's not true. The layers of striving, the scripts of not enough, the tight grip of urgency, the constant search for signs, all of it, static, all of it, distortion. And when it falls away, what's left is signal, clear, soft, steady, true. So if it feels like nothing is working, maybe it's not that you're doing it wrong. Maybe it's just that you're trying too loudly. And the field, like water, doesn't move with pressure. It moves with permission, with purity, with presence. You don't need to fix your energy. You don't need to force your frequency. You need only remember who you are beneath the grip, who you become when you stop checking, who you already are, when you simply let yourself be. This is the shift, not a breakthrough you chase, but a breath you return to, a homecoming to the version of you that already lives the dream, not because she manifested it, but because she stopped living as if she wasn't worthy of it. And as you live from her, as you breathe from her, as you move through your life, not as someone trying to manifest, but as someone already resonating with the miracle, you'll notice that life starts echoing back that tone. The signs begin to appear, not to convince you, but to confirm what your body already knows. The opportunities align, the people arrive, the moments unfold, not by chance, not by control, but by coherence. And the old version of you, the one who waited, gripped, reached, braced, she no longer runs the show. You've upgraded the signal. You've anchored the truth. You've become the vibration of everything you once asked for. Not with force, but with frequency. Not from effort, from essence. Not by asking, by allowing. This is the shift, the one most never feel. The one so subtle you could miss it. But when you don't, when you feel it, live it, let it shape you. You realize something stunning. You were never waiting for it. It was always waiting for you.